Hong Kong expert, a more terrifying pandemic is inevitable. Shaanxi highway bridge collapse, over 20 vehicles plunge into river. Chinese human rights activist, why are there so many floods in China? CCTV airs 4-minute tribute to party leader Nguyen Trong, downplays disasters across several regions. US calls on Chinese regime to end its 25-year persecution of Falun Gong. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Hong Kong expert, a more terrifying pandemic is inevitable. Hong Kong microbiologist Nguyen has made an alarming prediction, stating that another pandemic is inevitable and could be even more catastrophic than COVID-19, potentially resulting in up to 400 million deaths, a truly terrifying prospect. As reported by AFP, Nguyen shared these insights during a July 19 interview at Queen Mary Hospital in Hong Kong. He emphasized the need for public and world leaders to recognize that a new pandemic could emerge sooner than expected. Working both as a staff member and educator at the hospital, Nguyen's research team has been at the forefront of global efforts to study severe viral threats, including isolating and identifying the SARS virus. In the interview, he attributed his dire forecast stems from the rapid shifts in geopolitics, economics, and climate change. He cautioned that despite world leaders currently prioritizing national or regional interests, the urgent issues of a rapidly changing climate and new infectious diseases should be paramount and not neglected. Nguyen, while carefully avoiding political discussions, emphasized the importance of understanding the origins of COVID-19. He advocated for an investigation to be conducted openly and transparently, which could provide valuable insights for preventing future epidemics. However, Nguyen did not clarify the basis for his prediction. Previously, entities such as the World Health Organization and countries including the USA have requested Beijing's cooperation in probing the origins of the COVID-19. Nonetheless, the CCP has persistently hindered these efforts, which led to retaliatory measures against Australia for its vocal support of the investigation. Earlier in January, at the Davos World Economic Forum, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus issued a warning about Disease X, an unidentified pathological phenomenon potentially leading to a mortality rate 20 times greater than the coronavirus pandemic. The term Disease X, adopted by the WHO in 2018, doesn't specify a particular disease but refers to a hypothetical, unknown pathogen that could trigger a global pandemic. Previously, China witnessed two major plagues that became global issues, SARS in 2003 and the COVID-19 in 2019. Both outbreaks resulted in substantial fatalities in mainland China, with CCP authorities consistently concealing the actual figures. Occasionally, local government leaks have revealed death statistics, which were swiftly censored. In July 2022, the Shanghai Public Security Bureau's database suffered a massive data breach, exposing the identity information of 1 billion Chinese citizens. This led to widespread speculation about whether this figure actually reflected China's population at that time. If true, it implies that the pandemic resulted in an enormous death toll. By the end of 2022, the Chinese Communist Party had removed pandemic restrictions, only to see the economy quickly deteriorate and the real estate market slump. Some analysts believe that a significant decline in China's population could be one of the main reasons driving the economic downturn. Shaanxi highway bridge collapse, over 20 vehicles plunge into river. CCTV News reported that around 8:40 p.m. on July 19, sudden heavy rain and flash floods in Jiaxue County, Shanghai City, Shaanxi Province, caused a partial collapse of a highway bridge near Yanping Village, leading vehicles to fall into the river. It was the second tragic, deadly episode in the country in less than 3 months involving the failure of a stretch of highway. On the morning of the 20th, a resident named Mr. Wang recalled to the Red Star News that after stopping his car, he went to the collapsed bridge and saw small cars floating on the water surface. The water under the bridge was particularly swift. He wanted to help with the rescue but lacked the necessary equipment and it was very dark. The rain had lessened by then. As of noon on July 20th, CCTV reported that 7 vehicles that had fallen into the river were found, resulting in 12 fatalities, and 1 person was rescued. Additionally, 18 vehicles and 31 people are still missing. However, due to the CCP's concealment of disaster information, the actual situation may be more severe than the official figures. The CCP's official statement that the bridge collapse was caused by sudden heavy rain and flash floods has triggered a backlash from mainland netizens. Super Talk host Jai Haichao said, "A highway bridge that can't withstand such heavy rain is ridiculous. We await the final investigation results." Other netizens said, "So many people, it's too tragic. 20 cars, with 2 people per car, that's 40 people. It's summer vacation, so many families are out together, the numbers won't be small." Some said, "This is a repeat of the Meizhou Expressway collapse in Guangdong. It's definitely not a natural disaster, this is a man-made disaster. The bridge piers are fine, but the bridge deck has problems, which should have nothing to do with the heavy rain. It's indeed ridiculous, this is a tofu dreg project. Blaming it on the heavens." Some even disclosed that the Shaanxi Highway, which was originally called, was completed only a few years ago. About the Meizhou Expressway collapse in Guangdong mentioned above, at 2:10 a.m. on May 1 this year, a section of Dabu Road on Guangdong's Meizhou-Dabu Expressway collapsed, sending vehicles tumbling into a deep pit and igniting a fire. The Chinese Communist Party's official report claims that by 2 p.m. on May 2, 23 vehicles had fallen, resulting in 48 deaths. DNA testing is underway to confirm the identities of 3 additional victims, and 30 people were injured. However, the official account of casualties has been met with widespread skepticism. Meanwhile, on July 18, flash floods broke out in Baoji City, Shaanxi Province, with water breaching the embankments. As of the evening of July 18, officials reported 5 deaths and 8 people missing. Hunan is also experiencing even worse flooding, with many urban areas submerged. Multiple highways in cities like Zhengzhou have been closed, many towns in Nanyang have been waterlogged for days, with farmlands destroyed and people in deep despair. Mr. Yu from Hunan told NTD TV reporters that "I'm heartbroken and under a lot of pressure. I didn't sleep at all last night. All the hard work of the past year has been for nothing." As of July 19, 93 rivers in 14 provinces, including Shaanxi, Hunan, and Sichuan, have water levels exceeding the warning mark. Online videos show that the Three Gorges Dam has opened 12 spillways, worsening the downstream disaster. The meteorological department forecasts that in the coming days, many provinces will continue to experience heavy rainfall. On Saturday, places like Guangdong may face thunderstorms with gale-force winds or hailstorms above level 8. Chinese human rights activist: "Why are there so many floods in China?" In recent years, floods in China have been increasing. Initially, it was the southern regions that got flooded, and now the floods are gradually spreading north, affecting Hunan and Shaanxi. It seems that Hebei, the most prone to flooding, will be next. According to Water Conservancy expert Wang Weiluo, despite building 100,000 reservoirs over the years, the floods in China have become more frequent and severe compared to the past. What is going on? Chinese human rights activist Wei Jingsheng has given his own analysis on Free Radio Asia. Let's dive in. Each flood displaces tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, of people, and some even lose their lives. Officials, however, have the opportunity to gain merit and rewards, get promoted, and make money. As long as they create a few heroic figures for positive propaganda, they are considered good and wise officials. This has been a long-standing practice of the Chinese Communist Party. Why have reservoirs, built with the people's labor and money, not reduced floods but increased them? Originally, reservoirs were claimed to prevent floods. However, many release water during rains, supposedly to prevent flooding, but this actually creates floods. Yes, the government is indeed creating floods. They have advanced world-class detection systems and know earlier than the public about possible floods. However, to ensure the safety of their hydropower stations, they must open the gates to release water, allowing the floodwaters to inundate the public to protect their reservoirs. This also allows them to create heroic figures to promote the greatness and wisdom of the party, achieving multiple goals. People are very confused about why the larger the water volume, the more water is released. Then, what is the purpose of the reservoirs? This is the key question. From the public's perspective, the most important role of reservoirs is to prevent floods. But from the government's perspective, reservoirs are for generating electricity and making money. The government's directive for reservoir management is to generate electricity, with rewards for generating more and penalties for generating less. How can they generate more electricity? By raising the water level. The higher the water level, the more electricity each cubic meter of water can produce. So, reservoir management has to keep the water levels high for a long time to generate electricity and make money. The higher and longer they maintain these levels, the more electricity they produce. When they know heavy rains are coming, or even when it's already raining heavily, they start releasing water to protect the reservoir. This is why reservoirs end up causing floods. You can see this in the news, but why do they do it? Even with a little thought, it's clear it's for the government to make money, for officials to get promoted, and for heroes to give speeches. But what about the public? The public has to lose their homes and lives for them to make a little money. Can the money made from electricity offset the losses of the public? They are not on the same level. The two are not even comparable. Anyway, the public's losses are their own property and lives, unrelated to the officials' promotions and wealth. It's a pity to see the displaced people, so city dwellers donate some clothes and bedding to show concern. This is the Communist Party's idea of serving the people. Is there anything wrong with it? Officials can put on a domineering and shameless face. We often see this in the news. Some members of 50 Cent Army angrily say, "There is no other way, what can you do?" Actually, there is a way, which is to start by finding faults in management policies. Then you will know what to do. The contradiction in the management system is whether to prioritize power generation or flood prevention. Currently, the policy prioritizes power generation to protect the reservoir and power generation. The reservoir's first priority is power generation, second is flood prevention. So, they need to maintain high water levels for long periods and release water only when heavy rains start, creating floods. So, change the policy to prioritize flood prevention, make the reservoir secondary, and power generation the least important goal. Wouldn't that resolve this contradiction? Specific operations are easy: release water in winter and spring to irrigate farmers' fields. This is the original concept and function of water conservancy. Empty the reservoirs to prepare for summer and autumn rains to intercept floodwaters and prevent floods. This change is easy to talk about but hard to implement. The difficulty lies in altering the interests of powerful and influential officials. Losing the interests of the public is no problem. This is the inherent mindset of all officials, including technical officials and journalists. This is the current reality in China. According to the Chinese human rights activists' point of view, only by establishing a democratic system and prioritizing the public's interests on the important agenda can this wrong policy be changed. After the policy change, reservoirs can play their main role in reducing and preventing disasters, minimizing property losses, and ensuring the interests and lives of the people. All of this depends on political reform or revolution. CCTV airs 4-minute tribute to party leader Nguyen Trong, downplays disasters across several regions. The day after the death of Nguyen Trong, General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam, on the evening of July 20th, CCTV news broadcast showed Xi Jinping, accompanied by Kai Chi, Secretary of the Central Secretariat, and Wang Yi, Director of the Central Foreign Affairs Office, visiting the Vietnamese embassy in Beijing to mourn his death. After entering the Vietnamese embassy, Xi Jinping stood silently in front of Nguyen Trong's portrait, bowed 3 times to the portrait, then left a message and signed the condolence book before meeting with Pham Sa Mai, the Vietnamese ambassador to China. The 4-minute and 20-second footage showed Xi Jinping walking up the stairs to the second-floor morning hall without using the handrail, taking normal steps. During the third plenary session from the 15th to the 18th, there were widespread rumors on overseas social media that he had suffered a stroke. After the third plenary session ended, official media released footage of him attending the meeting, but the rumors persisted. In response, many netizens reposted this report on Platform X, stating that CCTV intentionally broadcast close-up shots of Xi Jinping writing and signing the condolence message to dispel the rumors. In the evening news broadcast on July 20th, among the 15 main contents, aside from the news of Xi Jinping mourning Nguyen death, there was also the news of the Chinese Communist Party sending a condolence telegram to the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam regarding Nguyen death, which also lasted more than 3 minutes. However, during this period, the collapse of a highway bridge in Shaanxi and a sudden flash flood in Nguyen, Sichuan, have caused major disasters, resulting in heavy casualties. News related to these incidents has been significantly downplayed compared to the coverage of Nguyen death. Regarding the highway bridge collapse in Shanglua, Shaanxi, although it was the first item in the news broadcast, the more than 3-minute segment mainly praised Xi Jinping for his important instructions on the collapse and Premier Li Chang for his directives, without mentioning the casualties caused by the bridge collapse. Apart from these two accidents, disasters have been occurring continuously across China in the past few days. Particularly, on the night of July 17th, a fire broke out in the Jioding department store building in Zhejiang, Sichuan province. Local reports indicate that the fire caused 16 deaths, and at least 39 people were hospitalized, with 3 in critical condition. Due to the CCP's habit of concealing disaster situations, the actual situation may be more severe than the official data released. U.S. calls on Chinese regime to end its 25-year persecution of Falun Gong. July 20th of this year marked the 25th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party regime's sweeping suppression of the spiritual practice Falun Gong, which has resulted in an untold number of practitioners being detained, tortured, and killed for their faith. On this day, the United States called upon the Chinese regime to end its persecution of Falun Gong and release practitioners who have been detained for their beliefs. In more detail, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in a statement, using the official name for the Chinese regime, "We solemnly mark 25 years today since the People's Republic of China, PRC, began a campaign of repression against practitioners of Falun Gong. For 2.5 decades, PRC authorities have targeted Falun Gong practitioners and their families in a campaign of abuses and rights violations. We call upon the PRC to cease its repressive campaign and release all who have been imprisoned for their beliefs." The spokesman said that the United States will continue to speak out for freedom of belief and hold human rights abusers accountable. Ahead of July 20th, U.S. lawmakers from both parties condemned Communist China's gross human rights abuses, while saluting Falun Gong practitioners' efforts to counter the persecution. The House of Representatives in June approved a measure to sanction those involved in Beijing's forced organ harvesting and called for an end to the persecution. Congressman Scott Perry from Pennsylvania, who sponsored the legislation, stood in solidarity with practitioners. He said in a statement, "I want to let you know that I stand with you, and the United States stands with you, and we want to offer a light of hope to all of those who are persecuted, the long suffering of the Falun Gong, and to let you know that hope is alive." Another co-sponsor, Representative Pat Ryan from New York, recently told a rally in Washington that the United States, in a bipartisan way, stands with Falun Gong. Congressman Bill Pascrell Jr. from New Jersey said the communist regime's actions can't continue. He said, "This repression must end. The Chinese dictatorship's oppression of Falun Gong and other religious groups is a stain on their country." Meanwhile, Representative Jerry Connolly from Virginia has met with Falun Gong practitioners and heard the stories of repression they or their families experienced in China. He wrote in a letter that he has unwavering support for their advocacy. Finally, "I hope that this will be the year in which we see significant progress in your cause and improvements of the human rights situation in China." Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, is a spiritual practice rooted in traditional Chinese beliefs in the divine. The practice includes moral teachings centered on the principles of truth, compassion, and tolerance, and a set of meditative exercises. The practice quickly gained popularity in China after its introduction in 1992, with an estimated 70 million to 100 million people taking up the practice by the end of the decade. Deeming that popularity a threat to its authoritarian control, the communist regime, under the rule of Jiang Zemin, unleashed a whole-of-society campaign aimed at eliminating the faith group. Falun Gong practitioners in China have suffered detention, brainwashing, torture, and forced live organ harvesting. An untold number have perished. In 2019, an independent people's tribunal concluded beyond reasonable doubt that Chinese authorities had been killing prisoners of conscience for their organs on a significant scale, with Falun Gong practitioners as the main source of organs. U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom Rashad Hussain joined in supporting this spiritual group. He said in a post on X, "We stand in solidarity with the Falun Gong community in the PRC and around the world." The Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, IPAC, a group representing lawmakers from various countries, said the anniversary marked a quarter of a century of protracted and profound suffering. They stated, "No minority, irrespective of their beliefs, deserves to be stripped of fundamental rights." Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.